What is your most memorable story of petty revenge? I have a friend whose pumpkin fall display at the end of his driveway would be run over by the neighborhood jerk. Happened every year. My friend decided to put a stop to it. He withdrew money from his savings account so he would have enough to buy the largest pumpkin he could find, along with several large bags of Quikrete. Filled that puppy up and made a real pretty display. The jackass broke the axle of his sharty car when he hit that pumpkin. Could not drive away. My friend had his car towed away, too. I caught my flatmate telling lies about me to some mutual friends. I made plans to move out the next month. In the meantime, she went out of town for a week and left her car parked in its usual spot in the parking lot. I threw birdseed on it every morning and evening, so when she came home, the birds wouldn't leave her car alone. I used to manage a Starbucks when one of my baristas asked a guy his name and he just flipped the duck out belittling her, called her stupid etc and didn't give a name. Anyway, I take over the handoff drinks and place his drink just on the handoff with no words. I'll add it was a busy store with a lot of people waiting. I just keep putting drinks out for about 10-15 minutes and douchebag walks up and picks up his drink that's now lukewarm and goes, "Is this mine?" I just respond with, "I don't know, it doesn't have a name on it." My college roommate had a bad habit of leaving her things in piles on our bathroom floor until there was almost no space to walk to the bath or toilet. Not just clothes but change, jewelry, decks of playing cards, knitting needles, books, hairpins, scarves, earbud headphones, keys, etc. One day she left $40 scattered with the mess, so I put the money in one of her lesser used bathroom drawers. Originally I put it there to protect it from our third roommate and her friends. When I came home the next day and noticed that she was clearing her mess in an effort to find it, I decided not to tell her where the money was until our bathroom floor was spotless. Afterwards, I decided it would be too awkward to tell her the truth, so I left the money wadded up in her hamper as I'd found it on the floor. She was ecstatic when she found it on laundry day. After that her bathroom piles never got quite as big. Not me, but for my wife. When we were younger and kind of on hard times, she took a pretty shady job at a local factory. The first 2 weeks she was there, she had her lunch stolen at least 5 or 6 times. Even open drinks. I was pretty pissed. A lot of times I would grill for her or make her lunch, and she was going hungry. One night I bought a big ass Gatorade and a box of those women's laxatives, both red in color. Couldn't tell the two were mixed, but we found out who the thief was. In response to her, admittedly pretty good, practical joke, I hid 7 battery-powered alarm clocks in the perpetrator's room. Set them to go off one by one roughly every 40 minutes between 2 and 6 AM. Last one was hid in the ceiling. My friend did some work for a guy who skipped his bill and never paid him. My friend is so petty he did many things, such as placed fake for sale ads with too good a deal like an ice boat for $1,000 and other numerous ads with the guy's number. Our city is big on garage sales. He posted ads like moving out sale, everything must go, cheap, will be held inside the house, just walk in or ring the doorbell, then put this guy's address on the ad. He also signed him up for numerous free gym memberships and responded to things like car dealership ads with this guy's phone number. He did a lot more, that's just what I can remember. I don't know who I feel more sorry for. There's a new truck in my apartment's parking lot. Always taking up multiple spots, always. Weird angles, close to the stairs, all over the place, no assigned parking unfortunately. Months of this. I drive a much smaller car than that, and I'm petty passive aggressive. I've been waiting for my chance. A few days ago was my shot. I got home quite late and there were 0 spots open in my lot. Big truck is double parked again, but there's just enough room on their driver's side for me to sneak in there with my little clown car. I carefully pull in, making sure not to touch anything. No damage, no nothing. My passenger side mirror is half an inch from their driver's side door. I giggled to myself all the way back to my apartment and set an alarm and waited. The following morning I wake up before the alarm to loud door slamming and stomping around. I check out my window and I see the double parking culprit walking around both vehicles, taking pictures, texting someone, taking more pictures. I'm shaking with glee. They then swallow their pride, let out a visual sigh, and climb in the passenger side, clamber over the center console, and Austin Powers 20-point turn their butts out of the spot. I've never been so proud of myself and my shitty, petty, passive-aggressive ways. Edit. Till that taking up multiple spots is technically not called double parking. Thanks y'all. My brother did something to annoy his then girlfriend. So she took the labels off all his canned food tins in the cupboards. Are you opening a tin of beans? Or a tin of tomato sauce? Or cat food? Kinda hilarious. Grounded yet again by my angry dad for breathing whilst his bowl game was on. I was stuck in my bedroom bored witless. For something to do I flicked the light switches on and off. Primo by Lyra folks, we had to make our own fun. It was then I discovered that this made a loud buzzing static interference on the TV in the lounge. Cue the next 5 years of petty revenge. Angry dad never figured out why we had such a bad TV signal at game time. He never connected it with me being sent to my room and flicking the light switch every few minutes, reveling as he yelled futilely at the static dancing across the TV. I found out my then boyfriend was cheating on me. And he threw my dog across the room when we were discussing what he had done. I moved out immediately. More for hurting my dog than anything. So as I was moving out I took his entire porn collection and microwaved them one by one. It only takes 3 seconds each. Took me about an hour to go through them all. I put them back in the case, then back where they belonged. Not sure if the microwave was still usable, did not really care. He was also a manager at a restaurant and would bring home tons of food. They had really nice coolers that the food came in, so I called the GM and explained I had moved out and that I wanted to return the boxes. He lost his job. Then I was getting collection calls for him. Gave him the new girl's work and personal number so they could find him. Don't mess with my dogs. I used to work doing stucco in East Texas. One guy just never paid us, so we spent a day tearing down everything we worked on. Another time, while working for a small machine shop, a customer kept dicking us around about paying for some work we did. Was all a walk-in job. Paid half up front and would pay the rest at pickup. Well, he needed his part now and would pay us the remainder in a month or so. So, we cut his part in half and said we'll give him the other half in a month or so. Lesson of the story, don't duck around with contractors. I used to go to this arcade and play a certain basketball game, as my name indicates. I was climbing the all-time wins leaderboard in said game, very close behind number 1, when one day my account vanishes. None of the other accounts do, and I learned that somehow the number 1 wins player, who works there, had a hand in it. I waited until he played another game and watched as he put in his code for his initials account, then waited 30 minutes when he was done, logged into his account on that machine and tanked a game pretty hard. When I was done his record dropped to 210-1. Unfortunately I did not see his reaction, but I got way too much vengeance satisfaction from it. Back in the late 90s I worked at Best Buy and one Saturday a month we had to come in 3 hours before the store opened, so 7 AM, for a mandatory all-store meeting where we watch the video from corporate, give out Employee of the Month awards, go over department goals, and the like. Well, there was a guy in our department, James, who was a pretty crappy worker and showed up to the meeting an hour late and the manager took him aside and fired him. Well, apparently the manager didn't watch him on his way out of the store and he went into the break room and stuck his finger in every single donut they brought in for our break, so literally the only mild positive of getting up at 6 on Saturday was ruined. 20 years later and I still miss that donut. I lived in an apartment with a roommate. We had neighbors who would throw crazy parties pretty frequently, oftentimes during the week. One day my roommate, who had to be awake early, had enough and decided to piss on a metal pizza pan and stick it in the freezer. After a crazy party he pulled the pan out and flipped it upside down, giving him a frozen disc of piss. He then slid that disc under their door where it would melt on their fully carpeted entryway. Woke up to them shouting at the people who crashed there about who hissed on the floor what the duck was wrong with them. Wish I could say they toned down their parties, but they didn't and eventually got evicted. I moved to America to be with this guy. Let's call him Big Dig. Big Dig happened to work at the same big box store as my friend Jay, and one day when I came to meet Jay from work, a coworker innocently said, "Are you looking for Big Dig? He's staying with his girlfriend." Me. I'm his girlfriend. Now another thing you should know about Big Dig is he bought his toothbrushes wholesale and lived in the grungiest apartment ever. I cleaned every inch of that bathroom, toilet included, with each and every one of those remaining toothbrushes, documenting every step with photographs. Then I rinsed them in the toilet, and put them back in the box. And I packed my sheet and left. 10 years later, when I'd calculated he was on the last brush, I sent him the pictures. I got reviewed at work by a manager I had never met before. I had done everything I was always told to do, and more, but he still marked me low. I know it's because they wanted to avoid giving me a raise, but at least say you don't want to, can't afford to. I'll at least respect your honesty. Anything else, and you can go duck yourself. Anyway, he told me I didn't go the extra mile. I pointed out that I always do. His response? "Well, I never see you do it." I said, "Well, maybe if management didn't always hang out at guest services and went around to the other floors, where I am doing my job, you'd have seen me." That got him to yell at me and mark me poorly for attitude, but I'd jaff. Later on, he came up to me and asked me if I could stay late. Given that I'd previously told him I didn't have anything else to do the next day, he probably thought I'd say yes. I looked him in the eyes and said, "Sorry, but I don't see that you guys need my help." My friend in high school was such a drama queen, but it worked out hilariously sometimes. He was cut off by a driver who had no brake lights and it hissed him off so badly that he followed until a cop was behind, merged around the guy and then brake checked him so the cop would see that he had no brake lights. The holler he let out when the cop pulled the other guy over is still one of the funniest moments of my life. My brother-in-law did something to irritate my wife back when they were in high school. My wife turned off the TV, wrote "broken" on a piece of paper taped to the TV, shut off the power strip, and flipped the batteries around in the remote. Took my brother-in-law several days to figure it out. In elementary school, a kid decided to purposefully pee himself after the teacher told him he had to wait until after the test to use the restroom. I don't know if that counts though, because he ended up troubling himself a lot more than he did the teacher. Went to a restaurant for brunch. Upon receiving my bill, I noticed a $3 charge for table linen. As I was leaving, I folded up the tablecloth. The waiter said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I paid for it, I'm taking it home." And I did. Went to a restaurant for lunch during a work shift. Out of 3 parking spots, somebody decided to park across every single one. There were no other parking spots at the time. So I decided to park within half a foot from my passenger side to his driver door. Ordered and got my food, and noticed an older, 60+ man leave and walk in the direction of our parked cars. When I left and walked towards my car, sure enough he was there, tray of drinks in one hand and a bag of food in the other, just absolutely struggling to get into his vehicle. He called out about why I parked like this, and my only reply was, "Why did you park across 3 spots? Park like and as you better expect to be treated like one." My sister smoked and hid it from my parents as a teen. She did something that pissed me off. I found and destroyed her cigarettes and then told her. She smacked me around. Then I told my mom. She got in a bunch of shit for beating me up, and my sister and I both knew why, but she obviously couldn't be honest about it with my mother. She got grounded for a while, and my smug little ass got as many knowing glances at her as I was able. I wear hearing aids, and a girl in my math class when I was in HS used to make fun of me. I had not said 2 words to her. I gave her no reason to do it. She was just being an evil hunt. I recording her mocking my hearing loss on my phone and played it for her parents. They took the new car they just bought her back to the dealership. When I was in law school I went to a bar with a bunch of law school students and decided I wanted a cig. I went outside and a whole bunch of girls are smoking. I don't like to bum cigarettes, but I had a free small fry coupon from McDonald's. I offered it to the girl if she would give me a cigarette. She said okay. I handed it to her, and then she wouldn't give me a cigarette. She said you shouldn't be so trusting. Flash forward a few months, and I'm the head GA for the for a division in our university, which includes administration. I went up to replace a computer and saw the same girl. She was waiting in line for a job interview. I went up to the person who was conducting the interviews, I was there in person too, and told them the story. She didn't get the job. Someone, definitely not me, got a parking ticket on my street after the city decided my entire street should be no parking. A party was thrown at a house that definitely wasn't mine, and after everyone got welded up, ratchets with sockets matching the size of the bolts holding the no parking signs were distributed. Up and down the street small women stood on the shoulders of volunteers removing signs. A full street in Southern California was liberated from the tyranny of the man. 17 signs were collected allowing pictures to be taken showing no visible signs for court. Fine was dismissed by a clearly suspicious judge and the peasants rejoiced. I've told this one before, but it makes me happy to retell it. I had a boss 7-8 years ago whom I hated. She was the fattest and most entitled person I had ever met. One day, she decided that she didn't like the smell of microwave popcorn, so she waved her magic office wand and had it banned. Fast forward a month or so. I was browsing Amazon and found one of those USB sticks that emits a smell when plugged in, the smell of buttered popcorn. I bought it, plugged it into the back of her computer, and she had the sweet smell of Pop Secret in her office for 6 ducking months. She complained almost every day. It's the sweetest revenge I've ever tasted. Guy in an El Camino was aggressively tailgating me in the slow lane. On the highway. Traffic was light so he could have passed easily. I'm in a SUV. I see metal debris in the road ahead of me. I know I can clear it and do. He wasn't so lucky. On the first snowfall one year, a co-worker balled up a snowball and threw it right in my face in front of the whole office. Everyone laughed and he refused to apologize. So on the next workday it snowed. I gathered a backpack of snowballs and disguised myself as a snowman in front of our work building, waiting for him to arrive. When he didn't try to open the front door I had locked, I burst from my snowman disguise and pelted him repeatedly with snowballs. My fingers and pen 15 were frozen from waiting as a snowman, but it was definitely worth it. Had a shitty landlord once. Refused to fix windows that were broken before I moved in. Basically just a shithole owned by a slumlord. Took him to small claims court for a number of reasons. Ended up getting my next 6 months paid for at my next apartment. There was a small trapdoor in the closet floor to access shut-off valves for the plumbing. So before I moved out I got scrap meat from a local butcher, stuff they can't sell, and placed it in the trapdoor. A few months later the place gets condemned due to vermin infestation, gets torn down. This was also before cell phones, so a couple times I got my female friend to call his house when I knew he wasn't home. His wife would answer, my friend would ask for him and act nervous and hang up. One time my dog came in my room and jumped on the bed while I was sleeping, waking me up. I scolded her and told her to get down. She slowly hopped off the bed, turned to look at me, sat down, and while maintaining eye contact scooted her ass across the floor, leaving a nice little poop mark. Looked away, stood up, left. I miss that little gremlin. I had a childhood bully of mine serve me food at McDonald's. It wasn't like actual revenge, but it was somewhat satisfying seeing a kid who was so cruel to me growing up having to serve me. I don't think he recognized me because I was much skinnier and had a beard now, but I definitely recognized him. One of my roommates kept stealing my Pop-Tarts, so I ordered a little UV fingerprint powder off Amazon and dusted it over the packaging. Next time a Pop-Tart got stolen I checked all of my roommates' doorknobs for the powder with a black light and found out who was stealing my breakfast. Alex, you still owe me a box of cinnamon frosted Pop-Tarts, you big dig. This one was truly petty. My dad was driving and we came up on a construction truck driving the other way with a crew in back placing cones in the center of the road as they slowly drove. Just preparing for some construction. Dad slows down and offers some criticism of how they are putting the cones down. I don't even remember what, maybe the cones were a bit far into our lane or something. Construction guy isn't having it, conversation gets a bit heated. Dude gives dad a duck you. Duck me? No, duck you. Dad proceeds to run over cones for an entire mile. Now I would have thought that they would have just gotten a little flattened, but the tar was actually throwing them behind the vehicle and frequently a lot to the left or right. Some were thrown completely off the road, all of them were just all over the place. He was a narcissist. This isn't even remotely the worst or most petty thing he did, it's just one I was there for. When I was 8 or 9, a kid pushed me down a hill and ran away. I split my forehead open and was hissed. Later that day I saw him come into the bathroom and go into one of the stalls. So I ran outside and grabbed a huge chunk of ice snow and ran back into the bathroom and kicked the stall door open and hurled it right into his stupefied face, then also ran away. My house was on the left side of a dead-end street. There was a house at the very end of the street facing the other way with its driveways attached to a different street on the other side. My roommate would always park in the front of our house on the street but leave enough room for cars to get past because the landlord of the other house graveled his backyard so he could use our street to get to the house. It had driveways but they were destroyed and very narrow up a hill, had to be repaired to use them. He left a note on my roommate's car stating she can't park there and he would tow her car if she did. I may have gotten irrationally pissed off by this old man trying to bullshit a house full of college girls. So I did what any good friend would do. Called my friend was a civil engineer intern for the city and he got the city to put up guardrails at the end of the street so he could no longer use his backyard as an entrance and had to spend the money to fix his driveways. Paint diagram as requested. Neighbor 1 and 2 were owned by the same slumlord. They are facing the other street, both with driveways. The red car is my roommate car and she would try to park far enough over to leave enough room as a courtesy. It was tight because the neighbor had a shed in their backyard limiting the space to get in from the street to the backyard. One time this girl at my university started yelling at me because I parked too close to her. She was in her car literally shouting at me the whole time I adjusted the park. When I fixed it she rolled down her window and I did the same. She said, "You idiot. You were gonna hit me." My response was, "If I wanted to hit you, I would've." Like a week later she got into a car accident after rolling through a stoplight and lost her license. Calm as a bitch. My mum and her friend had a massive fight, and my mum's friend sent a letter to my mum scolding her and pretty much saying we're no longer friends, and my mum, as an ex-teacher, took out a red pen, corrected all the spelling mistakes and grammatical mistakes, and mailed it right back to her. Family camping trip near the beach in Escalated with 2 couples and our young children. We had a great time until a huge family reunion took all the camping spots around us. Probably 30 adults and 10 plus young kids. No problem, we're all on vacation so sure, stay up, drink, party on whatever. They were another level of loud, arguing, all night long music, sheety, fireworks and general craziness. Worse, they put all their children's tent way the hell over on the other side of our 2 tents. Every night, they would send their kids, with the older kids as minders, to their tents and those kids cried, screamed, fought and beat each other. Some ran to us for help and we went to the adult group to let them know. They couldn't have cared less. When we left 3 days hence, my husband and our friend took all our leftover cookies, crackers and bread and spread it through their campsite early in the morning. They called it land chumming and it was glorious. Like an Alfred Hitchcock movie. An uncle of mine was a serious drug addict and an all-around asshole. When I was a kid it was pretty common for him to steal from my grandparents, including a lot of things they intended to give me when I was older, a coin collection, things like that. There's a long list of things he did over the course of my life to piss me off, but I'll skip to the petty revenge. I was browsing the local county website and noticed there was a section for active warrants. I wondered if any familiar names were listed, so I browsed it, and to my complete lack of surprise, I saw my uncle's name listed for something minor. Then I saw the Crime Stoppers number at the top of the page. I knew where he was living at the time and it was anonymous, so what the hell? I called, described him and told them where he was. They gave me a reference number and told me to call back in 2 weeks. For the sake of being thorough, I called a relative from the other side of the family who, funny enough, was not only a cop but also in charge of following up on these things. I told him the situation and he said he'd prioritize it. 2 weeks later I called Crime Stoppers for an update and they said the tip did indeed lead to an arrest and asked which post office I preferred. I was confused but I named one. They gave me an alias, told me to give that name to the clerk and there would be a general delivery envelope with $200 cash inside. That part was unexpected but a sweet bonus for sure. Easiest $200 I ever made. This was actually the other week. Me and some friends drove 1/2 hours to another town to watch our university play another. I was going around to hang out with my friends from home, and on the day of the game the ones I came with all ghosted me. They didn't talk to me, left me on read, would decline my calls, etc. So I didn't get my football tickets. I reported their car for being parked in a Walmart parking lot for over 24 hours and it got towed, so they had to go get their car back while I drove back with another group of students. Girl told me, not ask, to buy her a drink in college. Not against buying a girl a drink but I like to be friends with them or at least offer them first. I said I didn't know her and she starts cursing me out. So I ordered her shots. I take mine and hand her one and say I felt bad now. Once she reaches out to grab it, I pull it back towards me and take it. The look on her face was amazing. Okay, this is really petty. My husband is insane about lamps and side tables matching and being symmetrical. Like annoying about it. So whenever we have an unrelated argument, even after we've made up, I slightly shift a table lamp askew, or I'll tilt a picture frame. For years he thought it was the city bus driving over a manhole cover. He even called the city about it. I considered telling him if the city got involved with rerouting the manhole. They didn't. Phew. Edit to let you know that this has been going on for 11 years now and he still does not know. So if he reads this. Hi honey, you're not crazy. I love you. A mean girl at high school spread rumors and made other girls afraid to ask me out after I rejected her in front of everyone. For more context, I had never even flirted with her or even hung out with her friends. They were the gossipy, drama, pregnant by senior year, girls. However, they were really popular. I was a poor kid who lost his house and my mom couldn't even afford to feed us every day. It was kinda out there lots of people knew how my family lost our stuff. However, apparently I was really cute and there was a bunch of girls who would give me food or candy in hopes that I would be their boyfriend. Sometimes those gifts would be the only food I ate all day. That all ended the day she asked me out and I said no. None of the other girls dared to talk to me because that group of bitches would ruin their lives. I was constantly tormented by petty rumors, trashed stuff, and insults. So, I decided to graduate school early and joined the military. Then went to college, got an engineering degree and a good job. Went back home and out to eat only to run into one of her friends pretending that what they did was just friendly teasing. I politely walk away when I see her, that bitch who made high school a living hell. She flags me down like we were old buddies and tells me that she's holding various raffles and sports numbers for the playoffs. Then invites me out to her house. I wanted to curse her out then and there but I see she has her kids with her. So I take the flyer and drop by to scope out the place. Then I call the state attorneys about illegal gambling activities. Then I proceed to call Child Protective Services about her allowing underage drinking at her football parties. Then I call various other agencies about other violations. Bitch's mugshot appears in the newspaper a few weeks later. I'm a vengeful person, so I don't know about most memorable, but one that always comes to mind happened in first grade. It was probably the first time I manipulated my way into insulting someone without breaking rules, something I excelled at over time. There was this kid who constantly bullied me. I was never much of a victim. Even then, I have always been the type to fight back. He still made my life hellish though. So, taking into account a few things: 1. This is the early 90s and as such not as progressive. 2. This was a conservative small town. 3. To this day he hasn't changed much. At school for Valentine's Day we, of course, had to give valentines to everyone in class, even if they were bratty little assholes who went out of their way to make you miserable. I had a bunch of Disney princess valentines and I had to assign some to everyone. Pretty much everyone got the generic kind of stuff: I hope your Valentine's Day is sparkling, I hope your dreams come true Valentine, you know, that kind of stuff. But there was one that said something along the lines of I hope you find your prince. As soon as I saw it, I knew exactly who I had to give it to. As someone who probably was, and most likely is, a homophobe, he didn't appreciate it much. At all. Capital I. When I was about 10 years old I lived in the depths of North St. Paul, Leman. We used to ride our crappy bikes with friends all over the place. One day we were pedaling down this back alley behind all the main street businesses. Generally zero traffic on a road like this, but that day this huge brand new extended cab pickup comes flying out of nowhere, barreling down on us and honking. The guy is yelling swears out the window and everything as we pedal out of the way onto the sides. He stomps the gas and speeds off, and not a block later pulls into the back of some building's lot. We eventually pedal our way up there and see his truck parked by a loading dock with no one in sight. Collectively we all hated the person for how he treated us, and our brain gears were spinning on the possibilities of revenge. At that moment one of the tagalongs of our group announces that he has to take a really bad sheet. Light bulbs go off above all of our heads except his. There is a dumpster nearby and a newspaper on the ground next to it. With very little convincing he does the dead neatly on the paper. A massive 9-inch log that would have been impressive outright if not for the horrible stench with visible stink lines hovering around it. The group of us talk him into the next phase of the plan, with all of us as lookouts to ensure his absolute safety despite everyone on their bikes ready to book it at the drop of the turd itself. He climbs on the hood of the pickup truck with one hand holding the newspaper and the other slowly pawing forward for grip until he reached the windshield. Then, on 2 knees, and double-handing the underside of the newspaper, he splats it on the windshield and swipes in a big arc across. It was as if the truck had a single whipper for the entire windshield and left a perfect 9-inch wave from one side to the other. The turd itself was only half used up in the process and sat angrily on the other side from where he started. At that moment someone yells "Run!" and we all scramble out of the back lot and down the road. Pedaling on back trails near freeway frontage roads and the like, we left no trace for us to be found. An hour later we doubled back following these trails and enjoying the little jumps and tree routes as amateur biker kids do, and came across another group of kids on bikes. Man, did they have a story to tell about a huge, angry, red-faced man driving all over the neighborhood looking for a group of kids on bikes. It's been about 30 years and I still laugh at the memory, but I also hold the lesson close to heart about not treating kids like shit for no reason. They will get ya back if they can. I was working on a fruit picking farm with other backpackers in rural Queensland. I'd had a boyfriend when I arrived there, and I left because he dumped me and immediately shacked up with the bitch next door, who had been my friend too. The morning I left I was up really early to catch the bus out of that shithole. I noticed that they had been up late drinking and left their room keys in the communal kitchen. I took those keys and hurled them into the fields in front of camp. Then I took some soy sauce and poured it into the trainers they had left in front of their room. Suu petty, suu cathartic. Also, duck you down. In middle school, this girl Amy used to taunt me constantly. She was in my group of friends and would always put me down and say God whenever I'd say something. Years of her insulting, acting like she was better and so above me and everything I did. Anyway, fast forward to senior year, math class. She's sitting in front of me and audibly farts. Me, loudly, "Wow Amy, last name, so disgusting." Laughter ensued, teacher was in tears. When I was in grade 8 I was a pretty ugly and I had a crush on this guy, but he was always really mean to me. Well, lucky for me I was definitely a late bloomer. I saw him when I was in my early 20s at a bar downtown. He definitely didn't recognize me because I looked nothing like I did when I was in grade 8. He was hitting on me and rejecting him was the greatest feeling ever.